Zechariah Tiemann says, what happens when they or we start making political ads that forego political issues and instead focus on messaging and telling a story? I'll interrupt the question here to say, you mean something like that Virgin America video I've been talking about? Well, what'll happen if we do that is we're going to start winning elections. That's what's going to happen. Because it's not about the message. It's about the story. I'll tell you something. Hang on a second. I just shot an afterburner. I'll just interrupt myself real quick here. Shot an afterburner that'll be released, I guess, next week. And it's called Stories Liberals Tell. And basically I said, look, we think that in order to win people over, we have to be armed with statistics, and we have to be armed with argument, we have to be armed with fact and logic and all this other stuff. And we're going to show them what happens with the national healthcare system in Britain and why that failed. And here's a cost-benefit analysis of what's going to happen to the healthcare costs and doctors and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And we get loaded up with all this ammo. And we lose. And we lose because Barack Obama and the progressives understand the power of story. So what does he do to sell an abomination like Obamacare? What does he do to sell an abomination like Obamacare that's going to cost money, cost lives, and take a lot of your tax dollars and your freedom of choice away? How does he do it? Well, he stands on the floor of the House of Representatives during a joint session of Congress, and he talks a little bit about the legislation, but he doesn't lay out facts and figures and statistics and everything. What he does is he points up to the balcony, and the camera goes to the balcony, and there sits a little old lady, Abigail Johnson, and Barack Obama says, now up in the balcony is Abigail Johnson, who had a pre-existing condition that was life-threatening, and she spent all of her money and all of her husband's money, a late war veteran war hero who's no longer with us, sadly. And Abigail Johnson was going to die from this condition, but because of the provisions of this new legislation, Abigail Johnson has a new lease on life. Abigail Johnson gets to spend another Christmas with her grandchildren and many more Christmases because we don't leave anybody behind. And people look up there and they see the face of Abigail Johnson smiling down at President Barack Obama, and they think, well, let's do it. Because I don't want that lady to die. I don't want her to die either. I don't. I really don't. The millions of people who might die because of national health service kind of insurance are the people that lose their insurance because of these new Obamacare regulations or the new taxes or the new rates. Nobody cares about that. Those are statistics. Joseph Stalin got it right. One death is a tragedy. 1 million deaths is a statistic. The left personalizes the story. And when they personalize the story and make it about a face, people's emotions take over. I didn't want that lady to die. Okay, let's see what this Obamacare thing's about. Let's vote for that. You got to understand this is how they fight. And it may be, in fact, a wounded guy holding a grenade to kill the medic. Okay, if that's how they want to fight, then let's fight that way. It's what works. And we got to be prepared to fight them like that. We got to personalize this message, got to tell some stories. So Isaac Tiemann says, did you know that the title splash in your latest firewall contained a spelling error? Yes, I did. I found out about it about 2 days or 3 days after it was posted and already had 100,000 views or something. And the reason I took that question, Isaac, is because it made me sick for 2 days. I just couldn't even get out of bed. Making these kind of unforced errors just makes me sick. It just makes me ill. Because I know for a lot of people it completely invalidates everything that comes after it. And it was just plain late night laziness. I took a look at the way I spelled it, I put it into Google, and I got 30 returns for privilege spelled P-R-I-V-E-L-E-D-J-E, and there's no D. But I found 30 things on Google come back, so it turns out there's bunches of other people that misspelled the word I did. I'm going to get it in the dictionary next time. And it makes me sick. It's really the only thing in my current line of work that actually genuinely makes me sick. Criticism of them doesn't make me ill, and the things that people say don't make me ill, but when I make stupid mistakes like that, that just absolutely guts me. It just guts me. Paul Sullivan says, do video games work as good messaging devices? Yes, they do. They can tell stories like movies, but the player is personally engaged. Gamers are an interesting bunch. They're not exactly conservative, but they've pushed back against liberals in various recent events related to Gamergate. How can we get the message to them? Look, video games are so effective that the left had to team up and form Gamergate. In other words, a group of progressives had to get together and say, these video games are so powerfully conservative that we've got to write bad reviews about games that are good games, but they carry a conservative message. And games like Medal of Honor or Battlefield or any of these first-person shooters, you get a pretty good sense of sympathy for the U.S. military. You get to blow away terrorists, which is pretty cool. So, yes, it is a great idea, and the left is trying to control it. And God bless those guys who broke the Gamergate story, because that blew up in the left's face too. And once again, it's another example of how weak the left is and how poor their arguments are, because they have to make us shut up. Because if they can't argue with us, they got to shut us up. Don't buy that game. That game is no good. Well, why do you want to talk about why the game is no good? No, just don't buy it. Yeah, okay, cowards. By the way, it just came through on the social stream. I meant to mention it earlier. But it is, in fact, 50,000 Facebook likes, and that's quite a record. And Desiree, would you mind going to my black bag over there before I go any further? Because I think we're probably going to wrap it up for the night. I'll do one more question. It's right over there. There should be an envelope in there that I would like to read. We'll do one more here, and then got a little closing message, and we'll take it from there. Laughing Hyena says, if conservative messages and themes are closer to the American heart, why are they so rarely put into the media? The reason they're so rarely put into the media is because the media is controlled, is controlled by the left, and conservative messages are the end of the world. As Tammy Bruce said to me, liberalism is dependent on papering up the windows of a building like a church and making sure that no light gets in there at all. If any light gets in there whatsoever, then there's an alternative message. If there's an alternative message, the left wins. I'm sorry, the right wins, the left loses. So, what do you say? They have to keep the windows papered up because they can't win in a fair argument. They can't win in a debate. They have to have the echo chamber. It's just that simple. Hyena, or Laughing, if I may call you Laughing, they have to shut the message out. That's why they want to get Rush Limbaugh off the air. That's why they try to get Glenn Beck off the air. And they did get Glenn Beck off the air. He had the most popular show on the most popular network, and they boycotted him off the air. They have to close it down. The internet, they hate. They hate the internet. The internet's designed to survive nuclear war. They can't control it, and that's what they can't stand. They just can't stand it. But it's all part of the closing thing. So anyway, the messaging thing is something we're going to come back to. I'm going to do a little more looking into all these other things. I think hopefully by this time next week I'll have commitments from some people, hopefully some of the guests, and hopefully from Kara and some other folks, see if we can't get people locked down and start getting an announcement out there. But before we close the show today, I had a special announcement. I wanted to save it to the end because I think it's very important. I want to spend a few minutes on it, and it's completely off topic. So that is the end of the messaging show.